Good morning, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you're located. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Dina, and I am a Customer Success Manager here at Process Street. We're really excited to be showing all of you the ways to maximize your property management processes and streamline your business needs. So some of you may know that Process Street is extremely popular amongst property managers, and we've had the pleasure of visiting some of you in person and seeing the way that you've been using Process Street. So we've designed this webinar based on the common and most beneficial ways this group is using our platform. And we're really looking forward to showing you all of the features that we have to offer.
Yeah, and hello everybody, I'm Anne, also on the customer success team here at Process Street. It's a pleasure to be here with you. As Dina mentioned, we have a lot of property management companies that use Process Street, and we know how important solid systems are to your business in particular. With all the moving parts, you simply can't have things slip between the cracks. It really doesn't matter how big your portfolio is. There's always a huge crossover of jobs needing to be done, new tenants arriving, new property owners to onboard, plus all the miscellaneous things to keep up with, like unexpected maintenance and repairs. And with all these spinning plates, your success lies really in your consistency, not only in providing a stellar experience for your landlords and tenants, but also for your own ability to grow as a company. And also let's remember that your sanity matters as well. So today we're going to share with you some tools, tricks, and hacks that can improve your operations, save you time, and ultimately create a better experience for everyone involved. Here's what we're going to cover today. So we're going to show you a pre-made template pack created specifically for property managers, so you can get up and running today with common industry processes that are already done for you. We're going to talk about a way to seamlessly move your landlords, tenants, and properties from one critical process into the next with zero duplicate effort. We're going to cover techniques to leverage the information that you capture in your Process Street checklists so that you can see a summary of each project at a glance and send customized emails with just 2 clicks. We're also going to talk about a really cool automation that you can set up that generates and sends fully customized contracts in about 5 seconds without you having to copy paste anything or even leave the screen that you're on. We're going to go over a collaboration time saver that allows you to easily assign or reassign projects, accounts, and processes to different people on your team so you can quickly organize assignments based on location, type of rental, or any other way that you prefer to divvy up your workflow. We're also going to look at a way to collaborate on your processes with external people. So property owners, tenants, cleaners, vendors, so that they can help complete your checklist with you while only being able to see what you want them to see and keeping the rest for your eyes only. And then last, we're going to give you a sneak peek at a new feature on the horizon that will allow you to set up a system for approvals in your processes. So let's jump right into it. Dina's going to share with us first about the pre-made templates and how they're specifically designed for property management companies. So Dina, why are pre-made templates so valuable for property management businesses?
Thanks, Anne. So our team at Process Street dedicated time to building out the most common templates and processes for you. So you don't have to. Huge time saver right there, of course. So not only do you not have to create the processes yourself, you can leverage the best practices that hundreds of property managers are using in these real example templates. You also get to see examples of how to organize content and capture information inside of a checklist, which will give you ideas for optimizing your other processes as well. Most importantly, you can get up and running quickly and efficiently. We have many organizations that import pre-made processes, and from there, they start onboarding tenants, working on maintenance, and completing screenings immediately. You can truly start right away, even without any customizations. Rather than reinvent the wheel, you can also make simple tweaks to make processes your own, and you're off to the races. So I guess I should probably share what exactly a pre-made template is. So a pre-made template is a totally done-for-you process that you can download into your Process Street organization and start using today if you wish. So some examples of pre-made templates you can get today are apartment building maintenance, landlord screening, onboarding and offboarding, late rent payment process, lease renewal and expiration, maintenance log setup, move out cleaning, rental inspection, tenant screening, onboarding, move in, move out, and even eviction. So definitely not a fun one, but a good one to have a process for. So how do you implement these pre-made templates step by step? So first thing to note is that you can find these pre-made templates inside of your organization. So if we navigate to the home page, what you'll want to do is select this new green tab here, and then select pre-made templates. So keep in mind that this is just the featured category. So once you get here, you want to click on this drop down and then select real estate. So here, definitely browse your options. As you can see, lots to choose from. In this case, what I would like to import today is tenant onboarding. Then I can select customize. I can change the name now or at a later time, no problem. And okay. And now I've just imported tenant onboarding into my organization. So of course, you can customize these templates to fit your specific needs by adding or removing relevant and irrelevant content. So all you'd want to do is click edit this template, and you can add, remove, or edit any tasks, content, and form fields to make it truly your own. So I really hope you enjoy these pre-made templates. They're truly ready for use today. And next up, we have a feature that has been designed to allow you to initiate one checklist from another, and it's called the checklist run link. So Anne, can you share with us why checklist run links are so valuable to our property management businesses?
Yes, I would love to. Before we move on, I just want to make sure, is everybody able to see the screen that we are sharing? If you can just type into the Q&A, yes. Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so the run link. Yes, thank you, Dina. So this is the one feature that will likely save you the most time. I'm really excited to share it with you because in your business, you're repeatedly moving data from one place to another. Run links are a way that you can seamlessly move from one critical process right into the next. So for example, moving a property owner from screening to onboarding, or moving a tenant from lease expiration to move out. So with the run link tool, you don't lose time getting reoriented and reorganized around what needs to be happening and where it needs to happen, because all that's required is clicking a single link and you're up and running with the next process. What's also cool is you save time from duplicate effort and double entry because you can pull in variable data. So you can pull in tenant name, property address, move in, move out date, any data that you collect in your initial checklist, you can have that move right over into the second checklist without copy pasting a thing. It all happens automatically. You can also share a checklist run link with an external user, such as a property owner, tenant, cleaner, or vendor, and have them initiate their own checklist so that you can capture data from them and you don't have to pass back and forth a bunch of emails and follow up with phone calls and dig for all the pieces of information that you need. Also, what's great is you can initiate all of this inside of Process Street, no third-party automation needed. So what is a checklist run link? The checklist run link is simply a link that when clicked on, it creates a brand new checklist from any template of your choosing. So let's talk about how you implement a checklist run link step by step. So we'll go ahead and navigate to our organization here and our tenant processes. So you can see here, we've got a couple different processes. We've got tenant screening and we've got tenant onboarding. And what we want to happen is when we take somebody through the tenant screening process, if they are approved, we want to automatically move them into their onboarding process. So that's what we're going to do. So to implement this, what you're going to want to do is go to the second process in the two-part go to the second template in the two-part process. So in this case, this is the onboarding checklist we'll want. Click on the cog wheel, click more, and click Run Checklist Link. Now what you'll see here is a URL is generated. Now when anybody clicks on this link or you copy paste it into a web browser, it will automatically create a brand new onboarding checklist. So that's pretty cool, but it gets better. So a couple things that I want to point out. Number one, permissions. There's a couple options here. So by default, you'll have this. Only organization members can create a new checklist. And what that means is if you have just your internal team can move, for example, somebody from tenant screening to onboarding. That would be an example of using it internally. So you would want to choose that permission. Or we mentioned being able to share a process with somebody externally. If you choose anyone can create a new checklist, you can give this run link to your tenant, for example, And when they click on it, it generates a brand new checklist and they fill out a bunch of information for you. So you could create one for your tenant screening checklist, for example, and have them do a lot of that work for you. Now, beyond just this starting a new checklist, we also talked about that you can pull information from one checklist into another. So how we'll do that is you'll click link options here, and we can add variables. This means a variable is basically any form field data that you capture in your checklist. So we're going to want to move a few things over. We're going to want to move the checklist name so that we don't have to rename the checklist. It'll automatically be named after the tenant. We want to add first name. We want to pull in last name, email, phone number. You can pull in as much information as you want. So all you do is just keep selecting the ones you want from your dropdown. And what you'll notice is when I selected all those, it updated our link here. With the link just got a lot longer and kind of ugly, but we're going to repair that. So let's go ahead and copy this link. And now we've got our checklist run link for the onboarding process. And we want to bring this into our tenant screening checklist. So let's go to that template, clicking on tenant screening and edit this template. And now we have a task here that is to move the tenant on to onboarding. So we're going to want to put our run link in here. We already have it built out for you here, but I'll show you how we did that. You want to grab a text widget, pull that in, and just paste the run link in here. Now, all of these variables that we added, you can see there's these 3 X's next to each of them. So address line and then 3 X's. This is our chance to basically match up fields that we've captured in this tenant screening checklist to the tenant onboarding checklist. So we're just going to replace those 3 X's with a variable from this checklist. You use this little variable magic wand, and it's a magic wand because variables are magic. So checklist name, and you can just type in the variable you're looking for to pull it up. So we're going to replace address here. We're going to replace address line 2. And again, it's just make sure you delete those X's and replace it. Email. And again, you'll just do this for every form field that you want to pass through. Last name, first name. And you just need to make sure that you have those form fields in this process, and that's what makes them available in this variable list right here, phone number. So there, we've replaced all the X's, still a really kind of crazy looking link. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna copy that, and we're going to make it hyperlinked linked text. So you'll click this little link icon here, paste that big long link in there with all these little variable placeholders, and then we can just replace the text to display. We can say something like click here and click OK. And now you can see it looks a lot more like how we had that built out. So now let's go ahead and look at how this works in real life. So navigating back to our original tenant screening checklist, we've screened Billy Smith, and lucky Billy, he is approved, and we are ready to move him on to onboarding. So all I do is when I get to this stage in the process, I click here to initiate the onboarding process. I clicked my run link. You can see it automatically generated a brand new onboarding checklist. It's automatically named Billy Smith. And when I click tenant information, all of that information about Billy has been pulled in automatically from that first template. So pretty cool. So please take advantage of the run link. It's really awesome. Also, along the lines of variables, we talked about how powerful variables are in the run link, but variables also can be used in other parts of your Process Street account. So Dina is going to share with us about using variables when coupled with the send email widget and other content in your property management processes. So Dina, will you share with us about that now?
Yeah, sure, Anne. And
Yeah.
thanks.
Can I jump in real quickly? There's still a couple of reports of people not being able to see the screen. We apologize for that. That appears to be a Zoom issue that it's having. Um, if you close out of full screen, some people are able to see the screen. And if in that case, you might be able to drag it to be bigger. I apologize for those of you who can't see it. It's a Zoom issue that we're struggling with. We will try to get that resolved, but regardless, at the end of the webinar, we will send out a video to everyone that will have all of the screen recording in it as well. So apologies. And for those of you who can see, you are the lucky ones. I'll turn it back to Dina here and we'll keep going.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. And thanks everybody for bearing with us with the technical issues. And thank you, Anne, for an amazing demonstration of the checklist run link. I feel like I can build a better run link now as well. So as Anne mentioned, variables. So we've had the pleasure of talking to many of you and learning that it's always the best case to notify the tenant, landlord, or whomever else before they can get to you. So for example, you can use the built-in email template to create emails for notifying a tenant that you've started their onboarding or that a repair request has been scheduled. Of course, that's a great one. Maybe you'd like an email for additional items you may need from them after you've reached a certain step in the process. Or maybe you just want to notify them that a contract is on its way. The best part is that these emails can be pre-drafted inside of ProcessStreet, and there's variable data, again, such as the tenant's name, address, move-out date, or whatever other data you feel is relevant that can automatically populate inside of the email without you having to look anything up, type, or even copy and paste info from any other area. You can send this email in 2 single clicks straight from your checklist. So just to highlight again, what are variables and the send email widget? So you've heard the word variables now multiple times throughout this webinar. Variables, again, are pieces of data captured in form fields inside of your checklist that can be reused anywhere else inside of ProcessStreet and even third-party applications. The send email widget is a custom email template that lives right inside of your process. So how do we implement variables and the send email widget step by step? So as you can see here, we're back to the onboarding process that was initiated, that Anne initiated with our checklist run link. You'll see task number 6 houses an email template that we've created. This email template is actually pulling in variables into places like the to field and name, and of course you can add more if you wish, and these are all found in your process. In this case, there's even more value because these variables came from our tenant screening process, meaning you don't have to double enter data, so we see even more time saved and our email template is ready to go. So again, all you have to do here is hit send, and then the email automatically opens up in your default mail client. So it comes straight from you or one of your team members every single time. So next powerful way we see variables is with something that we like to call a summary task or a summary report. So variables, again, can be a really powerful tool in the process. We've seen ways to use them in run links and emails, but what about inside of other areas of the checklist? So being a property manager means that you're collecting data all along the way, whether that's for onboarding or maintenance. And as we've helped some of you build out your processes, we found that data can be captured in numerous tasks repeatedly. So we want to make using ProcessStreet as simple and efficient as possible. And that's why we don't want our team members to have to hunt around in different tasks for data that has been captured about a property or landlord or tenant. So for example, let's say a tenant onboarding process. Let's say we're collecting data on steps 2, 5, and 7, but my property manager needs to have all of that data in front of them in order to complete task number 10. Another way that we can use variables is to create a summary task with all of the data I've collected along the way, or specific pieces of data that my team member will need while completing a certain step inside of the process. If we navigate back to the template editor, we can create the summary task of information. So if we go back into the template editor, here you'll see I already have an example. So what you'll want to do, or what I could recommend is, just create a new task that says tenant summary, or again, summary report. You'll see a finished example of that right above here. And it's really easy to create the above. So all you want to do is grab a text widget here. And then of course you have lots of formatting options to choose from. And then you just start filling in the data that you want to populate. Maybe we want first name, maybe we want last name, potentially we want the address. Again, anything that you feel would be relevant to help you complete another part of the process. Again, please use these formatting options to your advantage. We have some examples that we'll show you later of another organization that's doing lots with formatting so you can make it look really nice inside of your process. So now if we go back to an active checklist here, if we go back to our onboarding process, and you'll see tenant summary, here's a finished example of that report and that data that has been collected throughout the checklist. So property managers, use this to your advantage. Think about the time saved here, but also think about having a process where your data can be used in multiple places. As my colleague Anne just demonstrated on the checklist run link, think about having that initial data from the first checklist pushed into a summary report into a second checklist. You'll really never have to duplicate efforts again. So I really hope you all enjoy utilizing variables in different ways in your processes. I'm really excited for all of your streamlining to begin. So we've seen some pretty cool ways to save time so far, from pre-made processes, run links, pre-drafted emails, and more. But what if we want to know how to completely automate a specific part of our process? So again, my colleague Anne is going to cover how automations can add value to property management firms. So Anne, can you tell us why automations are so valuable to property management businesses?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Dina. So think about something that you do on a regular basis, such as preparing contracts and lease agreements, invoicing your vendors, coordinating your subcontractors and maintenance people. These are all necessary and important activities in your business, but have you ever actually added up the amount of time it takes? For example, with a contract, the amount of time it takes to pull up the contract template, find all the contact info and details of the lease or the agreement specifics, then copy paste all that info into the contract, make sure all the appropriate information is captured and dates are correct and everything's in the right place, then send out the contract, follow up, get it back, file it away, on and on. All that time really adds up. And also with all of those moving parts, these really important processes are prone to human error as well. So what if all of that could happen, though, seamlessly, error-free, in literally 5 seconds instead? What could you and your team be focused on instead that serves your property owners and tenants and grows your business? So automation is a powerful tool your team can use to be more efficient. Using it lets you be hands-off with these important and time-consuming tasks, so the computers take care of it and everyone on your team can focus on the more higher leveraged work, the work that just capable humans can do. So that's really the power of automation. And what are we talking about exactly when we say automation? All I mean by automation is that you're having a task done for you by the software instead of by a human. And how do you go about setting up automations in Process Street? So to do that, all you need is 3 things. Number 1, a Process Street account. For most of you listening, that's already handled. Number 2, you'll need a free or premium account with Zapier, which is a third-party integration service that I'll share more about with you in a moment. And then number 3, you'll need your accounts with any other app that you want to integrate with Process Street or that you use already on a daily basis. Maybe that's Google Drive, an e-signing application like HelloSign, a spreadsheet application, a customer CRM, whatever apps you're already using. So Zapier is a third-party integration platform that allows you to connect different apps together. It's basically the glue between Process Street and the other apps you're using all the time anyway. And it allows you to automate various functions within those apps. There are currently over 1,500 actually applications supported by Zapier, which means that Process Street can automatically integrate with all of those 1,500 plus apps. So one example that we want to highlight today that can make a huge difference in your industry in particular is connecting Process Street with HelloSign to automatically generate and send out landlord contracts and lease agreements, any other agreements you need to send. So HelloSign is an e-signature platform that we love in particular because it integrates really well with Process Street. Here's what you can do with it. So you can have your Process Street checklist where you capture all your data directly, as we've shown. So for example, landlord or tenant onboarding process. And then you can have a task in there that you check off. That's called something like send lease agreement or send contract. And then simply by checking off that task, automatically your contract gets filled in with all the relevant details in all the right places. You never have to copy, paste, or risk human error in transferring those details over. And automatically, your contract is sent straight to your landlord or tenant for signature. Then when the contract's signed, it automatically gets imported right back into your Process Street checklist. And you can even set it up so that the contract also gets sent straight to a file in your go-to storage system. So Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, wherever you keep your documents. All of that automatically just by checking off one task. So you just saved yourself a good 20 minutes or so. And depending on how many times a day or week you send out contracts, you've just saved yourself hours. And by the way, we recently hosted another webinar all about automations. If you missed that, it was really powerful to see some real life examples of processes that are normally really cumbersome. Like, for example, putting together a whole customized visual slide deck presentation for your clients, to see that happen in literally seconds. So if you missed that, we'll be sure to include a link to that automation webinar in our follow-up email to you. Definitely recommend checking it out. And speaking of time savers, I want to share one more awesome feature with you in Process Street that I think you'll love. So this is a recent enhancement that our customers are really excited about, and it's really relevant to businesses like property management. It's called role assignments. So why are role assignments so valuable to your property management business? One of the features of Process Street that our customers love is being able to pre-assign people to certain tasks in your processes, so that every single time a checklist is run, those individuals are already assigned to their tasks in the checklist. So in property management, you work together as a team, which is great. And this feature is great for that. However, we also heard from many of you that you don't always have the exact same person doing the exact same thing each time. So for example, you may have different people in charge of different types of rental properties. Maybe you have someone on your team who's responsible for your long-term rentals and somebody else who manages your short-term vacation rentals. Or maybe you have different property managers assigned to different neighborhoods or territories. Or maybe you just alternate who's responsible for the different projects to keep the workload balanced. Well, here's where role assignments comes in. Now, every time you run a checklist, you can select with a drop-down menu, just one click on a drop-down field, who on your team should be in charge of those tasks for that particular property that time. This means it's super easy to assign projects or quickly reassign them. For example, when a property manager is pulled away to deal with a maintenance emergency, you can just reassign it to somebody else, and everything is instantaneously delegated to the appropriate person. They immediately have all the info they need, and everyone knows what needs to happen and when. So just to ground this concept, what exactly are role assignments? Role assignments are a way to dynamically assign tasks to different people on your team based on a role versus based on an individual. So how does it work? What you'll do when you build your template, you'll add a members field. It's just one of the form fields that's available to you in your template editor. You'll just pull a members field in there to your template, and this becomes a drop-down menu that shows a list of the individual members on your team, or groups of your team members if you decide to organize them in groups. So you might put that members field in there, you might call it lead property manager, for example. Then what you'll do is you'll assign tasks within your template to that role, lead property manager. Now, when you run a checklist, you'll see on this screen here, for those of you who can see the screen, all you do is you select a person from that particular dropdown, and then all of the tasks that are assigned to lead property manager will be automatically assigned to the person who was chosen from that dropdown. So presto bingo, super easy to assign projects that way. We also held a webinar last month in which we covered this feature, so we'll be sure to share a link to that as well, so you can check that out in more depth. And speaking of brand new features, we have another brand new feature hot off the press that we can that helps make collaboration even easier for you. So Dina, tell us about task permissions and why this new feature is especially valuable to property management businesses.
Thanks, Anne. So why are task permissions so valuable to property management firms? So, okay, I am really excited about this one. So during my time here at Process Street, we've worked with many of you trying to find the best ways to collaborate with external and internal facing users at the same time. So I've been asked the question by many of you, how do I share just a single part of my process with another user, or have heard, I just want my tenant to see just their tasks inside of the checklist? So we're happy to announce that with this feature, you can achieve just that. So what exactly are task permissions? So task permissions are permissions you can set inside of the template editor. They allow you to hide specific tasks from different users to make your checklists more private. So of course, you can also use task permissions to show users just what they need to focus on. That's another great benefit and value of that as well. So how do we implement these task permissions step by step? So just to touch on a quick example here, if we navigate back to the template editor here, you'll see at the top of every task in the upper right-hand side, I have an option that says permissions. So if I click on permissions here, I can choose to hide or show this task from my different users in my organization or via the checklist share link. If you all remember earlier, we created a tenant summary task, which is the task I'm on now, where I pulled in variables from across the checklist into a text widget. So let's say I want to verify this variable information with the tenant. I can set the permission on all other tasks as private when somebody is viewing it via the checklist share link. And of course, you can also multi-select these tasks and set a permission at one time by holding down Command. That makes it go a little bit faster as well. So just to touch on, a checklist share link is a unique link to a checklist that allows you to view it without having a ProcessStreet account. So perfect to pass to tenants, landlords, or whomever else is an external user. Now I can send this link to my tenant and they will only be able to see a summary of the data that has been collected on their behalf. I can also have a task ready here if I navigate back to that checklist for Billy Smith. Here, I can capture the checklist share link and paste it into a website form field that will populate in a pre-drafted email to my tenant right here below. And all there's left for me to do is hit send, and then a summary report is on its way. So a couple of really great ways to use task permissions are having the landlord or tenant fill in information on their behalf, which of course will save you time and relieve efforts from your team. Or again, just send them a summary where the data is being pulled in from other tasks. That way, you actually remove the ability for them to edit any information that has been collected, just like in the example that we saw. So just to note on here, on this tenant summary task, if you did use the share link and turn off the certain permissions and set them correctly, here's a potential example of what it could look like when you send it to your tenant. Just one summary task, Billy Smith here, with that summary report, and again, no access to any other tasks inside of the checklist. As you can see, super, super powerful. So again, it will allow us to really collaborate, get and give feedback, and verify information in different ways. And I just want to send a quick thank you to our product team. They really listen to our customers' needs and feedback, and they're designing a feature that will really change the way that we work together. So thanks, product team. Oh. So sorry here. It looks like Google actually signed me out. So sorry, team.
Oh, good. Technology happens.
Thanks for bearing with me, guys. Okay. Back to our presentation here. So one more sneak peek at approvals. So coming soon, again, we have approvals. So for example, if you want to ensure an account manager reviews and approves a lease before it gets sent out to a new tenant, you will be able to set this up with approvals right inside of your process. So right now, many of you are doing workarounds with conditional logic when you need a task to be approved by an admin or a manager. So we've helped you find these workarounds, but now we've taken all of your feedback and requests and are creating a feature to specifically serve this purpose. We will have a new feature that will implement this approval process for you. So our expected release will be Q4 of this year, and we will have a lot more updates along the way about what you can hope to expect. So I really hope all of this information has been valuable. But one thing we know is that it's always helpful to see and hear about how these features and workflows apply to real life situations and real property management companies using ProcessStreet. Myself and Jason, our Director of Customer Success, had the pleasure of visiting SIA Property Management in May, and we were really blown away by their high-level usage of Process Street. And they were kind enough to send over images of their most well-designed processes. So Jason, can you please tell us how SJA is utilizing Process Street and why they've been so successful?
You bet. So before I do that, just real quickly, there's a bunch of really good questions coming in. So just a reminder, if you do have questions about any of this stuff, some of it's a little bit complicated that we've gone through. So feel free to send those questions in. We'll answer those. Likewise, if you got a little hung up, like particularly in Anne's part where she's changing variables and stuff like that, we will send out a recording of this after the fact so you can watch that. And for those of you who can't see the video, it will have video. So you can actually watch it in action and, stop and start as you see fit and go through it. Additionally, if you do run into problems, feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you with that. We have a great help center. We also have a great team of customer support folks. So just ping us if you have questions, and we would be happy to walk you through that. So in terms of a well-designed, well-executed system or property management use, one that we'd like to highlight here is, as Dina said, SJA. We were actually kind of surprised when they showed us everything they were doing, because they've done a really good job. And while it's great that they're using a bunch of the features, and obviously we love to see that, the other thing I really like to highlight is kind of how they've done stuff from a design standpoint. And special thank you to Heather for providing all of this for us. She's done all of this and has done an excellent job. So a couple of the things that I'll just kind of walk through, you can see here in this, the screenshots are, they've not only just listed the tasks over here on the left-hand side, but they've done a really good job of building out the tasks themselves. So they've done things like putting in images. They're using formatting, like the bolding, the larger fonts, the backgrounds, all that sort of stuff. And that really helps your users go through those tasks. So they know that when they see the blue background, that's an instruction, for example. And they know where to look when they need various things. They have the subtasks that you can see in there, but they've really made it more visually appealing on the right-hand side. So it's not just like a block of text. So one thing that we like to highlight there. The other thing that they've done a particularly good job of is you can see they've got assignments on all the different tasks. So we talked about that earlier in terms of having individuals assigned to tasks or having a group of individuals assigned to a task, and then someone can be dynamically assigned. So if you have your property manager, like you've got a group of property managers, and in the very first task, you say, okay, property manager A is the one who's going to own this, they would just dynamically be assigned. And likewise, if you need to swap that person out, you can always do that. So everyone knows, where they are in the process and when they need to jump in. There are also a bunch of stop tasks on these things. And that's a feature that I think is well executed here as well, because the bulk of these tasks are actually done by the property manager. So they're going to do, say, 80% of the tasks. They're in here all the time. They just kind of, work through the checklist. People like finance or maintenance or whoever, else in the organization that needs to periodically just jump in and do one or two tasks, they aren't going to come in and check all the time. And they need to be notified when they can do their task. So by using the stop tasks, they will be notified when they're able to do it. So maybe there's 5 tasks that have to happen before that person can actually go in and collect payment. So once those five are done and they hit the stop task, then that finance person would be notified, okay, great. Now, now's the time for you to jump in and do it. So great execution there. One thing that I should also point out about this is that Heather is actually remote to her team. So she's able to build all of this stuff and document all their processes and make sure that, people are working through their checklist properly and not even be in the same location as they are. So this has kind of provided that tool for her to keep an eye on that sort of stuff and make sure that everyone's following the same processes and never even, be in the same physical space as people. She's done one thing here that I think is actually a best practice that we try to integrate as much as possible into our processes as well. And that is that she's included sort of the instructions here. One of the main motivations that we hear from people, so not only are you looking to track that things are done and make sure that everyone's following the right steps, but these are also used a lot in property management companies to enable people to swap jobs. So most property management companies that we come across run pretty lean. They have, relatively few people and everyone has a very specific purpose. But when one of those people goes on vacation, it's a big challenge for everyone else in the organization because they have to go do that job and they may not remember every single step. They've probably done it before, but they don't do it on a daily basis. So it's not just, muscle memory every time. So when that happens and someone else has to go do the tasks, that person can go read the documentation and be like, oh yeah, I remember I've got to do these 3 or 4 things. And you're ensured that they're kind of doing it the right way. So they've incorporated this documentation into their checklist. Now, for the day-to-day user that's using it all the time and doing the same tasks over and over again, they probably don't have to read that every time. By color coding, they know they can just kind of jump past that because I already know the instructions. But for someone who has to jump in at the last minute, they always know they have a place they can reference it and go in and, make sure that they do the job right. The last thing that I'll point out here is they're obviously using AppFolio. And while there's no direct integration to AppFolio, they've done a really good job of formatting their tasks so that they align with the steps in AppFolio. So, it's not like you're jumping all over in AppFolio doing things. It's kind of like task by task it's going through. The other thing that's a really good best practice for doing that sort of stuff when you do have to do the double data entry with AppFolio is if you use the formatting approach that Dina took to drop in all the form fields with sort of the magic form fields that we talked about, you can actually line all those up in the exact order that you need to do it in AppFolio. So you just open a screen, have, AppFolio on one side, Process Street on the other, and you can just kind of cut and paste really quickly to make sure that data is right and, easily entered into AppFolio. One of the motivations of SJA was to go paperless as quickly and as much as possible. And they've effectively done that. They've been a customer for, call it a year, but within that time period, they've eliminated the need for, piles of papers around the office. So they manage everything in Process Street and are able to keep that, the papers within their office to a minimum. We hear that's, sort of the grand goal, but from a lot of property managers. And often it's presented in the well, yeah, we'd like to do this, but we'll never get there. It is possible. We've seen it. They're doing it. So I think that is a great aspiration and something that you can certainly achieve and work toward if you'd like to. So that's a great example of what we've gone on there. Again, thanks to Heather and SJA for providing that. And we will continue on here. I will turn it back to Dina.
Thanks so much, Jason. And thank you so much, SJA, for helping us with today's webinar. We really love your processes. So I do want to highlight some additional aspects of success when it comes to your firms. So what makes our property management company successful? So the first thing that I've seen is a good balance between content and forms. So when you build out your processes, you want to think about laying out instruction in a way that if one of your property managers was on vacation or you were onboarding a new team member, they would easily follow a checklist and have all of the instruction they need in order to complete the process. With this, you'll want to ensure that you are collecting data with forms along the way. Any data that is relevant to that process will also be housed in your template overview, ready to export for monthly, quarterly, or annual reports. And to touch on team members taking over processes, one of the largest benefits I've seen is being able to get a team member up and running quickly or being able to scale. So of course, it takes time to build out your processes, but we do have one organization where the manager is going on vacation for the first time in a year because he feels peace of mind handing off a well-documented process and feels secure in knowing new members have the training, guidance, and support they need all within a template. Next success point that Jason touched on as well is going paperless. So of course, SJA did it. I am really confident that all of you can achieve that as well. And last but not least, as my colleague Anne also mentioned, is automation. So if any of you have had onboarding calls with our customer success team, we always tell you, start mapping out your hopes and dreams for automations. And what I mean by that is start writing down if I could upload this file here when I complete a task automatically, that would make my life so much easier. Or if I could trigger the creation of a checklist when this happens, that would also add value to my business. So please start documenting those hopes and we can all come together to implement them. If anything, the biggest value is the time you will save so you can focus on growing your business instead of manually completing tasks. And that's what we're here for at Process Street, taking care of the little things so you can look at the big picture. I do want to send it back to my colleague Anne for a recap of what we covered today.
Awesome. Thanks, Dina. Yeah, I'm so curious, as you've heard these different features and tools that we've gone over today, which one stands out to you as the most valuable for your specific needs? Feel free to share with us in the Q&A what you see for yourself there. And just to recap what we've covered. So first we talked about pre-made templates, which you can use as a shortcut to get up and running quickly with common property management processes that are already totally done for you. We looked at run links, which allow you to seamlessly move one process right into another with a single click of a link. We talked about different ways to use variables. So you can automatically display data from other parts of your process all in one place, like in that summary task that Dina shared, or send it along in an easy pre-drafted email. We talked about automations and a specific example with HelloSign, which allows you to generate and send fully customized contracts in 5 seconds flat. And we looked at a new enhancement role assignments, which allows you to assign or reassign projects, accounts, and processes to different people on your team. And the other new feature we talked about, task permissions, which allows you to collaborate on checklists with external people, such as your landlords and tenants, while also maintaining internal privacy in your process. And then lastly, we looked at a sneak peek at our upcoming approvals feature, which makes managing processes even easier. So Jason and Dina talked about what makes property management companies successful with Process Street. And one final success tip that we know to be true is that what gets scheduled gets done. So our invitation to you today is to choose one new feature or tool that we shared today that you're going to implement first, and schedule a block of your time in your calendar now to actually implement it. And bonus points if you reply in the Q&A with which one you're going to start with. We'd love to hear about it. And speaking of Q&A, we'd love to take your questions now. So as a reminder, just go ahead and click that Q&A box. There's a chat box too. It's best if you can pop it in the Q&A there, and type your questions in there, and we'll take some time to answer your questions now.
I see some familiar names in here. Hello to Heather, Courtney, Reed. Reed is in my area, the greater Seattle area. Thank you so much for joining us all today. First question I see here, and I do see that Jason touched on it, but Simon, it looks like you asked, when you say default mail client, does that include Gmail? Absolutely. It's just whatever your default mail client is, Gmail, Outlook. That send email widget will automatically open up in your own default mail client. And we do have an article that will help support if you need help getting that set up as well.
Great. Let's see. We also have a question about the checklist run link. So Courtney asked, when you paste a run link into another checklist, is the checklist assigned to the same Process Street user? So that's a great question. Dina, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe whoever clicks on the link, whoever is logged in and clicks on the link, it's going to automatically be assigned to them, the overall checklist.
Right, that is correct.
Yeah. So what you can do if you want that second checklist, so in our example, we talked about the tenant screening and then moving that to tenant onboarding or anything, but that's the example we use. If you want that second checklist, the onboarding checklist, to be assigned to a certain person, what you can do is in your first process, just make sure that task for clicking the run link, make sure that task is assigned to the person on your team that you want to be responsible for that second one, and then automatically they'll be assigned to that checklist. And just to clarify too, they'll be assigned to the checklist overall, but you can always assign every single individual task to anybody in your team. So you can collaborate with everybody in one checklist if you want.
Great. Hi, Ryan. I see a couple of questions from you. So contracts require fields to be populated that come from the landlord, property management side. rent amount, prorate amount, lease start date, can those be pushed in along with the tenant summary information? Yes, absolutely. You just want to ensure that you have form fields to collect that information, and you can pass along a share link with just the task to actually collect it from the landlord. Or again, one of your team members can go in, but you just want to have destinations for that data to be housed in, and then we can push it into a summary, into a contract with HelloSign via any other Zapier integration as well. And just to touch on another question I see from you here as well, Ryan, can you direct autosave into Google Drive to a specific folder based on a building unit, tenant file, etc.? So what you'll want to do, Ryan, is when you're creating your Zaps, there's another section. So there's a search function that you can use inside of your Zap. So your Zap is just the automation that you built. That's what Zapier calls it. And you'll have to search for that folder for building unit, tenant, and file. So you just want to make sure that information is somewhere inside of your checklist, and then we can pull in that data from that form field to actually find and then upload those documents to the appropriate folder. So a short answer is absolutely. It just takes a couple of extra steps along with a paid Zapier account, because it's not just a two-way Zap, so one trigger and one action, but we need another search function in there as well.
Yeah, and you can also have it create a brand new folder if you wish as well.
Absolutely.
Which is pretty cool. Okay, another question. Can you set due dates within a process template? So for example, screen tenant within 2 weeks of new process starting. We do not currently have a Process Street account. Process Street doesn't seem to cater to one-off tasks. So, okay, yeah, so a couple of things. So one, you're right, Process Street is where Process Street really shines, is with those recurring processes and tasks. So that's really the specialty. You know, having all of your processes documented all in one place, and then being able to run checklists off of those documented procedures so that you're actually tracking all of the steps that are happening so that they're happening the same way every time. And then also to automate a lot of those tasks within it so that all your recurring operations are just running like a well-oiled machine. Back to your first question about, can you set due dates within a process? Absolutely. So one of our Business Pro features is called dynamic due dates. And what that allows you to do, you can do it on every single task in your process if you want, or just certain ones that are more, you know, due date dependent. And you can set those due dates to be dependent off of other things that happen in your process. So you could say, when the checklist is run, for example, you want to have this person onboarded within 2 weeks. You can have different tasks that are due based off of the triggering of that checklist. So the checklist is run and those due dates are automatically populated. You can also set due dates off of other date fields that you have captured in your process. So like the lease start date or tenant move out date. If you've captured that date in your process, you can trigger tasks to be due before or after, you know, a certain amount of time before or after that date field. And then you can also have due dates that are triggered off of the end, like the due date of your checklist. So for example, you have a tenant move out, and the move out date is scheduled. That's when the checklist is due, July 30th or whatever, 31st. And then you can work backwards with those due dates so that the cleaning always happens, you know, 1 day after, but the inspection happens 1 week before and all that. So those due dates can be really dependent on all the different moving parts that you have going on in your process. Pretty powerful feature.
So, and just to add on to, you know, the really great explanation that Anne just gave. So Ryan, I do see you did talk about the one-off tasks, and like Anne mentioned, Process Suite's really designed for those reoccurring workflows and processes. But what I've recommended to some of our customers is to place a one-off task in the comment if you need to. And inside, so there's a comment section at the bottom of every single task where you can upload additional files, but also write a comment about that particular task, but also @mention a team member. So what I've recommended in the past is @mention a team member with an additional item that you need, and I will actually send them an email notification with your comment attached to it. And if they respond to the email, their comment posts back down to the bottom of the thread. So it's a kind of a nice workaround for one-off tasks, just a quick way to add something to a particular part of a process. I do see a question here. So what are the various cost plans for the system? So we have 2 paid plans. So we have Business and Business Pro. Business gives you access to unlimited checklists and templates, and Business Pro gives you access to that along with all advanced features. So conditional logic, dynamic due dates, stop tasks, role assignments, task permissions, and any other advanced feature will go on to Business Pro. So Business is $15 a month if you pay monthly, and it breaks down to $12.50 a month if you pay yearly, and that's per user. And then Business Pro is $30 a month monthly per user, and then breaks down to $25 a month per user if you decide to pay yearly.
Great. So I have a question here. What is conditional logic? So Dina just mentioned conditional logic is one of the advanced features that comes with the Business Pro plan. This is actually one of our most popular features and adds a lot of power to your processes. So basically conditional logic allows you to create if-then pathways in your process. So some examples I've seen that property managers have done, maybe you have your process is mostly the same, but there's a few differences, like getting a property onboarded. There's some differences if it's a vacation rental versus if it's a long-term rental, for example. So you can put a drop-down menu, is this vacation rental or long-term rental? And you can have your process to where it'll show certain tasks based on what the answer is. So if it's a vacation rental, it's going to show this set of tasks. If it's a long-term rental, it's going to show another set of tasks. And it allows you to keep things really relevant because you don't have a bunch of tasks in there that are not applicable, that you have to ignore. It also prevents you from having to create two separate processes that you have to manage that are mostly, they're 90% the same, but you'd have to create a whole separate one for vacation rentals and a whole separate one for long-term rentals. This way you can combine it all in one, and just your checklist dynamically changes based on your particular needs. So that is a really powerful feature. Great question. Thank you.
So a couple more questions here. So when you share a process, is it kind of like the same thing as a Google form or a type form? So what you can actually do, so what we've helped set up is, instead of utilizing a type form or a Google form, you can actually embed a checklist run link onto your website. So you just want to set the permission level to anyone can create a new checklist. And then I would recommend keep it short and sweet, again, just like you would with a type form or Google form, any form that somebody would be submitting. And they'll just click on that link, fill in all of that information, and it goes right into your organization, right underneath the parent template. And then there's, of course, the template overview that's attached to every template as well, where you can actually export the items that you've received based on those forms right outside of Process Street to a CSV. So really nice replacement. Of course, it would be nice to cut down on the applications that we use. So you can certainly use that to replace Typeform, Google Form, or any other form application that you use.
Awesome. Okay, so the question, hi all, I just wanted to clarify, if I use those permissions, I can share a task with one of my maintenance members and they can't see anything else in my checklist, yes? Yeah, so great question. Yes, so Dina shared with us about the task permissions. What's awesome about that is this, again, just like what I shared with the conditional logic, how you, one of the things before we had this feature is if you wanted to have your maintenance person fill out some different tasks or complete some different things, you didn't want them to see all the other stuff that's going on in your checklist, you'd have to create a whole separate checklist just for them. This allows you to have it all in one. You could even you could have a checklist that has your property owner fills out a portion, your tenant fills out a portion, your maintenance person checks off tasks when they've done those and those are complete. All of that can live in one checklist, and you can basically set the permissions to where people will only see what you want them to see. So yes, all of your internal processes will be hidden. You don't necessarily want your tenant to see the screening questions that you ask them over the phone and their answers, written in there, but you do want them to fill out all the information you want from them. So you can do that for sure.
Great. I think we'll take about two more questions. So we have another one here. So I've been using Process Street and really like it, but I'm having an issue. When I assign my team members to tasks, they all get emails at the same time for those tasks, and it ends up getting overwhelming. Do you have something that can help? So again, stop tasks. So placing those stops in between your task assignments will prevent a notification from triggering to that next individual. So right now, if you assign different team members and you run a checklist, everybody will receive their notifications. But placing stops on there, not only does it create enforced order, but it prevents the next task from triggering, the next assignment from triggering until the previous task has been completed. So great way to do a handoff between team members.
Yeah, good one. Okay, so I think this will be the last question here. So I'm new to Process Street. Can you suggest the best way to start before I make a commitment to my company? Yeah, great question. So you can get a free trial of Process Street. Just go to process.st and you can sign up for a free trial there. You'll get 14 days to experiment with all the Business Pro features, get some of your processes built, or just import the pre-made templates that Dina shared with us at the beginning here today. And we are totally happy, by the way, to answer any questions you have that come up as you start working through it. Our support team is always available to answer any questions you have. So that's what I would suggest is start the free trial, import a couple of the templates from the pre-made templates that are most important to you or that you would like to get. We often suggest just pick the one that if you could get that up and running, which would be the one that would make the difference in your business. Get that rolling, experiment with it. During those 14 days, you can also collaborate with some of the people on your team if you want to kind of see how that works. And of course, we're available for any questions that you have as you start working through that.
And just to add on to what my colleague Anne just mentioned, so when you do first sign up for Process Street, you have a template that's already imported into your organization that helps you get started. So there's also the demo video in there, and it kind of goes through the motions of navigating through Process Street for the first time. And then of course, we do offer a demo to our customers as well. So feel free to sign up for a demo and you can get set up with one of us from the customer success team, and we can really go through it with you and answer any questions that you have as well. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.